This is Energized, a podcast about simple ways you can improve your energy. I'm Dina, a naturopath, personal trainer and wellness coach with 14 years experience working with a wide range of clients to help improve their health, fitness and overall energy. Hello and welcome to this week's Energized podcast episode. We are at episode number 32. I love counting through these podcasts because it just reminds me of how long I've been recording for. And yeah, 32 episodes is exciting. So this week I'm talking about how your hormones affect your energy levels. And I'm going to focus specifically on one hormone, which is cortisol. I'm sure you've heard of cortisol. We know cortisol as being our stress hormone. And I thought today I would talk about what cortisol has to do with your energy levels and how trying to control our cortisol production and look at ways to reduce cortisol can help your overall energy levels. So just my general health disclaimer before I start, while I am a qualified naturopath and personal trainer, anything I talk about in this podcast is general in nature. If you'd like individualized advice, please jump on my website, dinasavitz.com, and book in for a free 10-minute chat, and we can go from there. Sometimes that chat might lead to me referring you to another practitioner who is a little bit more experienced or has more of an interest in certain conditions that you're presenting with. And then other times it will result in a consultation booked in for you. So yes, dinasavitz.com is the place to go for that. Now, I thought I would start with talking a little bit about what cortisol does. So we tend to have bursts of cortisol production in reaction to stress. So it tends to be external stresses that cause those higher bursts of cortisol production. And then what happens in our body is those bursts or those spikes are meant to stop, allowing us to return to our normal state. But today, many people have persistently high levels of cortisol production throughout the day, which can have negative long-term effects on overall health. So probably the most common hormonal imbalance for women is high cortisol, and that can affect all other hormones in your body. So when we have a stressful day, whether it's stress from, like I said, external sources or even things that are going on internally for us, whether we're thinking about work or the foods that we're putting into our body are causing stress in our body, what happens is your body starts to produce a lot of cortisol. And cortisol, here's a little science lesson for you. Cortisol requires something called pregnenolone, which is often called the mother hormone. So there's a theory that what happens is that in our body, we have very limited levels of pregnenolone, and it requires a lot of cellular energy to produce it by converting cholesterol into pregnenolone. I'm going to talk about cholesterol another day because we all think about cholesterol and think, oh, it's bad, but we actually do need cholesterol in our body. For exactly this reason, to be converted into pregnenolone. So when you are feeling really, really stressed, then a lot of energy in your body is going to be used to make pregnenolone, which then produces more cortisol. So all of your energy gets channeled into there, which obviously is going to affect your overall energy levels, right? But it's also focused on that, which means that it's not going to be producing estrogen and testosterone and all your other hormones. So this process is called the pregnenolone steal. It's stealing valuable resources to make cortisol to the detriment of other hormones. And that really wreaks havoc on your entire system. So, telltale signs of high cortisol are feeling wired but tired. So, you're super wired but you cannot fall asleep. Feeling distracted constantly. Weight gain, particularly around your midsection, that's very much the high cortisol, or your muffin top. Skin conditions like acne, eczema, and thinning skin. Sugar cravings, that's a big one as well. When you're stressed and tired and you're craving more sugar, that means there is a high amount of cortisol pumping through your body. And another one is actually easily getting bruised. So I thought I would talk about exercise and cortisol today because over the last few years, actually pretty much since I qualified as a personal trainer, there's been a huge shift towards HIIT, right? So that's high intensity interval training. The idea that you go really, really hard, and yes, it's really great for building strong muscles and building stronger bones as well. However, HIIT, when you do any type of high intensity interval training, it basically wipes you out, especially if you already have very high cortisol levels. So when you exercise, you are producing cortisol, which is great. It's fantastic. Cortisol is not an evil hormone. We need to be producing it. The problem is when you produce it too much. So a lot of people who do HIIT type of exercise are also over-exercising. So stressing the body constantly creates a lot of cortisol, a lot more inflammation, and is not going to be good in the long term on your body. So it's funny, right? Because exercise, I always talk about how exercise helps to increase your energy levels. It helps to reduce stress. One of, my favorite forms of stress relief is exercise. But also high cortisol equals high stress. So what are you meant to do? Don't worry, I have answers for you today. So I thought I would give you my 5 top ways to normalize cortisol production. So we know the negative effects of high cortisol. Cortisol is meant to spike when you wake 30 minutes after you wake up and then slowly reduce throughout the day until you're ready to go to sleep at night and your cortisol is at a nice low level. But what happens a lot of the time is that cortisol has that spike in the morning and then it spikes again and then it spikes again and again and again, and it just doesn't come down. So what you want to do is work on ways to normalize your cortisol production. So you want that nice curve that looks like it's a spike in the morning and then coming down. My top 5 ways to normalize and also, I guess, try to reduce that high cortisol, which is so apparent at the moment, especially with all the stresses that are happening right now. I don't need to name your specific stresses for you. The number one is doing a slow walk in nature. So specifically in nature, because studies have shown that being in nature, whether it's around trees, whether it's walking by the water, along the sand, anywhere that there's greenery, so even just a park, putting your feet on to grass, reconnecting with nature is an amazing way to reduce your cortisol levels. But walking slowly is probably the best form of exercise. Now I know it's boring. I used to hate walking. It was one of my least favorite exercises to do. In fact, I thought it wasn't an exercise. Before I had kids, I used to run everywhere. I honestly hardly walked. But since having kids, I've realized the importance of a beautiful, nice, slow walk in nature specifically, or outdoors somewhere. Don't give me a treadmill. That's not for me. Walking outdoors somewhere really just helps your body in so many ways, but it's probably the number one way to exercise. So if you still want to exercise, but you're feeling the effects of high cortisol from HIIT or other high intensity training, you could try to reduce the amount of sessions that you're doing a week and instead add in some long, slow walks. That's number one. Number 2 is to do some deep breathing. So deep abdominal breathing, where your rib cage expands, your lungs fill up with air. You can hold that breath for a few seconds and then slowly exhale. So even if you did a breath in for 5, hold for 5, and then exhale for 5 is a really great way to remind your body that you're safe. There is no lion attacking you, which I've spoken in the past about your sympathetic nervous system going into overdrive, and that's when high cortisol gets released. So doing some deep breathing is a really great way to reduce that stress response and normalize cortisol production. My third tip is to take herbs that work as adaptogens. So again, I've spoken about this in the past, but adaptogenic herbs help your body adapt to stress, whether it's external or internal stress. Herbs like rhodiola, withania, ginsengs, chamomile is actually not an adaptogen, but can also help to normalize cortisol production in your body. But definitely taking herbs. I personally take herbs every single day. Not necessarily adaptogens, but herbs that do a wide range of different things just to support my body. I take them as liquid herbs, and I prescribe them a lot for clients in my clinic, and they all find that they really help to balance things out. So if that's something you're interested in, I offer that as a service as both my express consultations, which is just part of a 20-minute consult, or as my extended consults, which an initial consult is an hour. Jump on my website, dinasavitz.com, or send me a message on social media if you want to find out more about that. My fourth tip to normalize cortisol production is to wait 60 to 90 minutes after you wake up before having your coffee on a morning. So remember I said that cortisol spikes 30 minutes after you wake up? You want that to happen naturally. Coffee can tend to stress your body a little bit more. And again, every single person is different when it comes to coffee, but it can create more cortisol. And so what you want to do is stop that high cortisol production, let your body naturally produce that cortisol. And one way to do that is to wait 60 to 90 minutes before you have that coffee. Then my final tip, my fifth tip for a way that normalizes your cortisol production is to exercise effectively and appropriately according to your individual needs. So that again will vary from person to person. If you're in a high stress, high pressure job, it is not a good idea to be going to CrossFit and doing a really high intensity interval training session every morning at 5 a.m. before you start work. I would suggest cutting that down to 2 sessions a week, and the other days, if you still want to exercise, which I highly recommend exercising daily, that's when you're looking at doing those long, slow walks in nature. Now, some exciting news. I have touched briefly on this, but I am about to start, as part of Mum's Health Collective, which is my new business, I'm starting outdoor exercise classes and online exercise classes. So they are very convenient for mums of all ages. When I say exercising effectively and appropriately to your individual needs, it is super important as a mum that you're not overdoing exercise and that you're exercising in a way that supports your body and what your body has gone through by being pregnant and birthing a child, whether that was 6 weeks ago or 30 plus years ago. Your body still needs to train effectively according to what it has been through and what it continues to go through. So if you're interested in that, then you can have a look at Mum's Health Collective on Facebook and Instagram, or you can jump on my website, dinasavitz.com, and send me an email and I can send you more information about that. I'm super excited next week to be launching an online masterclass to talk all about Mum's Health Collective, ways to improve energy, ways to use exercise to support you, not to make all of your hormones go out of whack and, be detrimental to your health. I would love to hear from you. Again, as usual, I am available at Dina Savitz on Instagram. Please let me know what your takeaways from this episode are. Did you know about exercise and cortisol and how pregnenolone is used up to produce cortisol, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message. Hope that you have a beautiful week. Bye.